somewhere in the middle of that dance, you start realizing how rarely you give anything your full attention anymore. You can't multitask in a classic car. You can't check your phone, adjust a playlist, and send a quick message while flying down the road. The car will simply not allow such nonsense. It asks you, politely, firmly, and occasionally with steam, to be present, hands on the wheel, ears tuned in, eyes on the world, and surprisingly, it feels good. Suddenly you're not rushing, you're not chasing time, you're just there, in a moving piece of history, in a moment that can't be hurried. Life stops being a sprint and becomes a gentle roll. Classic cars also teach humility, because nothing reminds you that you're not in control, like a machine built in an era when weatherproofing meant try not to drive in the rain. You can have the perfect plan for the day and your car will respond with, "That's adorable," but today we're learning about patience instead. Yet, weirdly, that's where the joy comes from. Not in the breakdowns themselves, we don't have to pretend those are spiritual experiences, but in the way they nudge you into letting go. You can't be in the fast lane when the universe, through your carburetor, is gently suggesting you slow the hell down. And then there's the driving itself, the unhurried steering, the engine note that actually changes when you listen to it, the road you start noticing because you're not flying over it at the speed of regret. Classic cars remind us that slowness isn't laziness, it's clarity. Slowness lets you see the world instead of blur past it. Slowness lets you notice the small things. Slowness makes the journey matter. So yes, old cars leak, squeak, rattle, sulk, and occasionally set fire to themselves, but they also carry a quiet wisdom, a philosophy, a reminder that not everything in life needs to be done faster. Sometimes the best way to get where you're going is to ease into the slow lane, breathe, and let the ride unfold at its own charming, slightly unpredictable pace. People often assume classic car ownership is all glamour and sunny Sunday drives, but anyone who actually owns one knows the truth. It's a spiritual practice, a moving meditation, a slightly oily path to enlightenment, because the first thing a classic car teaches you is patience. Nothing happens quickly, not warming up, not fixing things, not waiting for that part that was in stock last week. You learn to slow down, breathe, and accept that the universe occasionally manifests itself in the form of a seized bolt. And then there's awareness. Modern cars let you drift through a journey half asleep. A classic won't let you get away with that. It whispers, nudges, complains, celebrates. You start listening deeply to the engine note, to the vibration in the pedal, to that tiny new squeak you swear wasn't there yesterday. It's the automotive version of mindfulness, staying present, paying attention, noticing the moment before it becomes a problem. There's humility too. Classic cars do not care about your schedule, your plans, or your ego. They will embarrass you at petrol stations. They will refuse to start when you're trying to impress someone. They remind you gently, occasionally, not so gently, that control is an illusion, and somehow that's freeing. But the real zen is in the relationship, because it is a relationship. You invest time, care, curiosity. The car gives you stories, sensations, a kind of companionship. You begin to appreciate the effort over the outcome, the drive over the destination. You savor the journey because you have to. You can't rush it. And that slowness becomes a gift. So yes, classic car ownership can be frustrating. It can test your patience, your wallet, your sense of humor, but it also teaches presence. It rewards attention. It turns everyday drives into something richer, more textured, more human. And maybe that's the point. In a world running at full speed, a classic car pulls you back into the moment and says, "Here, be here. Feel this. Enjoy the ride." There's something classic car owners don't tell you. Well, a few things, actually. Things you only learn once you've lived with one of these old machines, long enough for it to test your patience, your wallet, and sometimes your sanity. First, let's get this out of the way. You will smell like petrol, not in a poetic motorsport heritage way. More like, why does my jacket smell like a carburetor again? It just happens. It's part of the lifestyle. You stop noticing, other people don't. And then there's the moment, every classic owner knows it. You get into the car, turn the key, and there's this tiny pause where you hold your breath and think, come on, please behave today. That split second where time slows down and you brace yourself for either bliss or character building. We don't talk about that moment, but we all live it. And here's another one. Owning a classic car means accepting that strangers will talk to you. At petrol stations, in car parks, at traffic lights, you become a magnet for conversations that start with, my uncle had one of these, or I remember these when I was young. You learn to smile, nod, and enjoy it, because that connection is part of the joy. We also don't mention how emotionally invested we get in the smallest things. A new rattle, immediate heartbreak, a smooth run with no issues, instant euphoria, a sunny day. You're pulling the car out whether you had plans or not. Classic ownership turns adults into hopeful children. Every drive is Christmas morning, but here's the biggest thing classic car owners don't tell you. We don't actually own these cars. Not really. We're just the current caretakers. These machines have outlived owners, mechanics, fashions, governments, entire eras. And somehow they're still here, bending time a little bit every time they start up. We get to be part of that story for a while, a tiny part of a journey that started long before us and will probably continue long after we're gone. See, the secret isn't in the horsepower or the shine of the paint or even the drive itself. It's in the feeling, the sense that you're touching history with your hands, hearing it through the engine, carrying it across roads. It's travelled before. Classic car owners don't tell you these things because, well, it sounds sentimental. And we like to pretend we're here for the engineering and the performance. But really, we're here for the connection, the stories, the nostalgia, the moments when a machine feels almost alive. So if you've ever wondered why people put up with the quirks, the smells, the conversations at petrol stations, the unpredictable starts, it's because these cars give us something modern life rarely does anymore. A reason to slow down, to pay attention, to care about something that isn't disposable. And that's why, despite everything we don't tell you, we wouldn't trade this madness for anything. You know, sometimes I wonder why we still bother with these old machines. They're slower, heavier, fussier, and occasionally leak their feelings on the driveway. And yet, somehow, they still matter, because every classic car invites you into a different pace of life. A pace where you're not fighting the clock, the emails, or the 10,000 urgent notifications. You're just driving, listening, feeling. Modern cars remove a lot of that. They're brilliant, of course, fast, safe, quiet, but they also insulate us from the world. A classic car, on the other hand, refuses to let you stay on autopilot. Here, you have to be awake, present. You have to listen for that tiny rattle that wasn't there yesterday. You have to feel the road through the wheel, the way the car leans, breathes, settles. It's an experience, not a commute. And that's the strange magic of these old things. They offer something modern life keeps forgetting. Connection, connection to the machine, connection to the moment, connection to a world where things had weight, smell, texture, and didn't all depend on software updates. Classic cars also bring people together. You never see strangers gathering around a 3-year-old crossover in a car park, but a 40-year-old saloon. That's an invitation. Stories start, memories surface. Everyone has a favourite relative who had one just like it. And maybe that's why they still matter, because they remind us that life isn't just about efficiency. It's not always about getting somewhere as fast as possible. Sometimes it's about feeling the journey again. These cars are rolling pieces of history, yes, but they're also reminders to slow down, to pay attention, to enjoy the simple things. So why do classic cars still matter in a modern world? Maybe because, in a world trying to rush us, they're one of the few things that gently ask us to take our time. You're listening to Classic Car Radio. If you want some quiet thoughts in the background, you're in the right place. There's something magical about driving an old car, and I don't mean the will it start today suspense, although that does add a certain flavour to life. I mean the way an old car quietly pulls you out of the frantic, high-speed, high-stress rhythm of modern living and drops you into a world where everything moves just a little differently. Modern life wants you to hurry, messages ping, deadlines loom, your phone vibrates like it's trying to escape your pocket. And somewhere in the middle of all that, you're expected to be productive, healthy, friendly, well hydrated, and apparently making passive income in your sleep. Then you get into an old car, and it reminds you that none of that matters for a little while. Old cars are wonderfully unapologetic about their pace. They don't sprint off the line. They don't have 8 driving modes. They don't pretend to be a spaceship. They just go in their own time, with a certain dignity, and occasionally with a smell you can't identify but have learned not to worry about. And that slowness, that gentle, mechanical honesty, feels incredible. You start to notice the road again, the weight of the steering, the way the engine clears its throat before settling into a rhythm. You're suddenly more connected, more present, more there than you've been all week. The car demands just enough of your attention to pull you away from the chaos, but not so much that you feel overwhelmed. It's the perfect antidote to modern overload. It's almost funny. Driving an old car forces you to slow down, and somehow you end up arriving faster at yourself. Your shoulders drop, your breathing settles. That problem you were stressing about gets replaced by something far simpler, like, was that noise there yesterday? It's basically meditation, but with carburetors and questionable electrics. Modern cars isolate you. They seal you in a soundproof pod, surround you with screens, and try to protect you from ever feeling any discomfort, physical or emotional. It's efficient, sure, but it's also oddly numbing. Old cars do the opposite. They let the world in, they let you in, they let you feel, hear, sense, and sometimes smell life happening around you. They turn driving from an errand into an experience. And when the pace drops, something else rises: enjoyment. Because you're no longer rushing to get somewhere, you're actually appreciating the process of getting there, the journey everyone keeps talking about, but rarely has time to notice. So yes, old cars might be slower, louder, needy, and slightly dramatic on cold mornings, but they also offer something modern life rarely gives us: a reason to pause, a reason to breathe, a reason to remember that not everything meaningful has to happen at full speed. Sometimes the most satisfying progress is made at 40 miles an hour in the slow lane, in a machine that insists you take the long way, and enjoy every second of it. There's a certain look people give you when you say, with complete sincerity, that old cars are better than modern ones. It's the same look you'd get if you announced you still listen to music on cassettes, or that you've recently taken up medieval blacksmithing, a mix of confusion, amusement, and subtle concern. But here's the thing: old cars are better, and not in the ironic, I liked them before they were cool retro, hipster kind of way. I mean genuinely, experientially, emotionally better. And today I'd like to explain why, gently, reasonably, and with occasional references to cars that have needed therapy more often than servicing. Let's begin. 1. Old cars have soul, and modern cars have software updates. Modern cars are incredible. They can park themselves, avoid collisions, and some of them even apologize when you try to indicate incorrectly. But they do not have soul. They have interfaces. They have warning chimes that sound like your dishwasher finishing a cycle. Compare that to an old Mercedes W123 warming up on a winter morning. There's a smell, a hum, a sense of the car clearing its throat before speaking to you. Or a classic Mini that rattles, vibrates, and cheerfully wobbles its way down the road, like a dog too excited for its own legs. Modern cars glide, old cars live. Modern cars feel like they were designed by committees. Old cars feel like they were dreamt up by slightly mad geniuses with drafting pencils and questionable haircuts. 2. Old cars demand your attention and reward it. Modern cars want you relaxed, distracted, and effectively irrelevant. Most will brake for you, steer for you, and judge you silently through lane assist cameras. Drive something like an old BMW E30, however, and you are suddenly awake. You are listening. You're paying attention to the idle, the feel of the steering, the smell of, is that petrol? Should it smell like petrol? An old car pulls you into the moment by necessity. It's mindfulness, but with more mechanical sympathy. You can't zone out. You can't doom scroll. You can't even sneeze without considering how the carburetor feels about it. And in that strange tactile relationship between human and machine, something happens. You remember what driving is. Not a task, not a commute, not an algorithm. A connection. 3. Old cars teach you character. Modern cars hide it. Modern cars are smooth, predictable, and engineered to feel identical across thousands of units. A Volkswagen today feels like a Volkswagen tomorrow, even if tomorrow's Volkswagen is technically a rebadged Skoda. But old cars, every single one has its own personality, its own backstory, its own grumpy morning habits. Your friend might own the same model year, same spec, same colour, and somehow their heater works and yours doesn't. Your locks freeze, theirs won't unlock after rain. Your dashboard rattles at 40 miles per hour, theirs rattles at 37.5. Every old car is unique. Like snowflakes that rust. A modern car hides its quirks behind layers of electronics and stability control. An old car puts its quirks on loudspeaker and then throws in a bonus squeak from somewhere you haven't identified in 3 years. And the funny thing is, that's what makes them charming. 4. Modern cars are fast. Old cars feel fast. Take almost any modern family hatchback, let's say a Ford Fiesta. It's quicker than many old sports cars. It corners better. It stops better. It does everything better, and yet it doesn't feel fast. It feels efficient, like a highly competent appliance. Now get into something from the 70s, a Triumph Spitfire for example. You do 40 and it feels like 80. You do 60 and it feels like 140. You do 70 and you start bargaining with whichever deity handles structural integrity. In an old car, speed has flavour, wind noise, vibrations, a speedometer that shakes like it's had too much coffee. All of it creates drama. You finish a drive in an old car and feel alive. You finish a drive in a modern car and feel like you've just arrived. 5. Old cars let you participate. Modern cars entertain you. There's a reason people are nostalgic for old Hondas and Toyotas with manual gearboxes. Changing gear yourself is fun. Balancing a clutch is fun. Listening to an engine instead of a synthesized engine noise through speakers is also fun. Modern cars often try to entertain you with huge screens and animated menus. Meanwhile, an old car entertains you by simply being a car. Take something like a classic Subaru. You turn the key, something mechanical happens. The flat 4 burbles, you feel the road. You actually drive, you're not swiping, scrolling, tapping, pairing, updating or rebooting anything. and that simplicity feels like fresh air for the brain. 6. Old cars connect you to people. Modern cars connect to the cloud. You take an old MG Jaguar or Alfa Romeo to a petrol station. You are not filling up. You are starting a conversation. People love old cars. They want to ask about them, share memories, tell you about the one they once had that caught fire, but in a charming way. Modern cars don't start conversations. Modern cars silently upload your data to a server somewhere. Old cars bring out nostalgia. Modern cars bring out update notifications. It's not the same energy. 7. Finally, old cars remind you that joy doesn't need perfection. Modern cars are nearly flawless. Quiet, smooth, efficient, predictable. Old cars are none of those things. And that's exactly why they make us smile. A slightly faded paint job, a bit of patina, a carb that needs persuading on cold mornings, a heater that has 2 settings, sauna and Arctic. These things aren't flaws, they're personality traits. You don't love an old car despite its imperfections. You love it because of them. They remind you of a simple, liberating truth. You don't need everything to be perfect to enjoy it. Sometimes the best things in life are the ones that wobble, leak, squeak, and surprise you, but still carry you home with a grin on your face. So yes, modern cars may have efficiency, safety, technology, and comfort, but old cars have heart, and sometimes heart is better than horsepower screens or software. And that's why, yes really, they're better. Every creak, every vibration, every quirk, it all adds up to something modern cars can't replicate, a driving experience that feels alive. Owning a classic car does something subtle to the way you drive. At first, you think you're just learning how to keep an old machine alive, but somewhere along the way, without any formal training or advanced driving courses, your habits start to change, and oddly enough, they tend to make you a better driver, even when you're back in something modern and sensible. Here are 3 of them. The first habit is listening. Classic cars demand it. A modern car filters everything out for you, the noises, the vibrations, the feedback. But an older machine doesn't bother with subtle hints. A slight change in engine note on an old Alfa, a new vibration through the wheel of an MG, or a gearbox that suddenly feels a little less cooperative in a Porsche from the 90s. These are all conversations, and if you ignore them, the car will escalate the discussion. So you learn to listen, to notice, to anticipate, and that habit sticks. You become the kind of driver who feels what the car is doing instead of just reacting when something goes wrong. The second habit is looking further ahead. Classic brakes are, how shall we put this, optimistic. Whether you're in an early Jaguar, a Triumph with a personality, or anything Italian that prefers enthusiasm over urgency, you very quickly learn that last-second decisions are a terrible idea. You start reading the road earlier, you spot traffic building long before it becomes a problem. You leave space, you plan, not because you're being virtuous, but because it's easier than standing on a brake pedal that was designed in another century. And once you've learned that skill, you never really lose it. Even in a modern car with enormous brakes and a dozen safety systems, you're calmer, smoother, and far less rushed. The third habit is mechanical sympathy. Classic cars reward gentleness. They don't like being rushed when they're cold. They don't appreciate aggressive gear changes, and they absolutely remember if you've been unkind to them. So you adapt, you warm things up properly, you shift more smoothly, you drive with intention rather than impatience. Whether it's a softly sprung French saloon, a slightly grumpy British roadster, or an air-cooled Porsche that prefers things done just so, you learn that respect goes a long way. And here's the interesting part, that mindset transfers. You drive modern cars more smoothly, you waste less energy, you feel less stressed, you arrive more relaxed, even if you didn't arrive any faster. So yes, classic cars leak, rattle, and occasionally test your commitment to the hobby, but in return they quietly train you to be more attentive, more patient, and more aware behind the wheel. Not bad for something with no driver aids, questionable reliability, and an owner's manual that assumes you already know what you're doing. Sometimes the best driving lessons don't come from technology. They come from old machines that simply ask you to pay attention. If you're thinking about your next car, you've probably been told to be sensible, something efficient, something reliable, something that pairs nicely with a spreadsheet. But there's a quiet, rebellious alternative, one that smells faintly of petrol, makes interesting noises, and occasionally asks